few miles from where I live is a country park. It is a lovely place with a wide range of different trees, plants, and wildlife. People often picnic there, take children to play in the woodland playgrounds, or simply to explore. It has even been nicknamed Little Switzerland by locals because of its clay cliffs, which are dotted around the place. These cliffs mean that the park is on a multitude of different levels. Some are accessible via slopes and steps, but some are not. It is on one of those inaccessible cliff tops where we were witness to something we could not explain. Almost 2 years ago, my girlfriend and I decided to take an afternoon trip to the country park. We had been at university all morning and wanted to be outdoors for the remainder of the day. It was an unplanned trip, but we hoped to walk around the woods and have a late dinner at the country inn. We must have been walking around the park for about an hour or so, exploring the woods, identifying birds, and just enjoying our surroundings. We had reached a quarry situated in the middle of the park. It had flooded a considerable amount of the area, so we walked further around than we may have had if it had not been flooded. I had previously visited the country park a number of times, and I remembered seeing what looked like the remains of a huge old house on one of the largest cliff tops. I knew my girlfriend would find this interesting, as did I, so I made an extra effort to find it. We eventually reached a gravel pathway at the foot of the highest cliff. There was no way up without climbing equipment, but it winded around the cliff's perimeter, thus enabling us a perfect view of the above remains. We must have only walked this path for 10 minutes, if that, and I saw what I had been looking for. The remains included an old brick wall on the very edge of the cliff top, and what looked like brick archways with wrought iron bars and no windows. It does not really resemble a house anymore, but I have reason to believe it was at least part of the grounds, which I will explain later. I walked up a few feet ahead of my girlfriend, so I could point up to where these remains were, as they were pretty well hidden amidst the trees. I turned to look at my girlfriend for a split second, before looking back to where I was pointing, and it was in that moment I saw it. Exactly in line with where I was pointing was something I can only explain as a creature. It was on a natural edge created in the cliffside, just feet below the remains we had searched for. The ledge was overgrown with ivy, and the odd tree here and there. It was very green up there, and this made what I saw contrast with the surroundings quite considerably. It was a creamy peach color, and it looked like the shape of a head, but it had no redeeming features. Although describing this reminds me of how scared I was looking at it. It is the way it moved which made my blood run cold. It seemed to be lying down, peering over the edge of the ledge I described. It must have been looking at me, because when I turned my head back to where I was pointing, it moved backwards into the overgrowth. It did not move like a human. It skulked back effortlessly. Like I said earlier, it was impossible to get up there without climbing equipment. And if anyone was up there, you would see them, despite the overgrowth, as the ledge was not that big. Also, if a person was hiding and peering over the edge, their facial features would have been more than visible. This did not have any, or at least it appeared not to. Not to mention that the most people would probably have moved in a clumsy manner, and would have still been visible. Whatever was up there, it was not fazed by me seeing it. It moved with confidence, and with a slow motion, it faded away into the ivy. It looked like it may have been slightly bigger than a human being. Another reason why any facial features should have been visible from that distance. It was not a silhouette of anything, not what I would describe as a ghost or entity. I could see it clear as day, but it was not human, or like any animal I have seen. Needless to say, I immediately asked my girlfriend if she had seen what I had, but she did not. I described what I had seen, and we both fled the woods as fast as we could. We had to carry on walking the same gravel path, as it was enclosed between the cliff and the sloping woodland. This left me startled and intrigued. I had been to the country park a number of times before, and never encountered anything like that. I decided to do a spot of research, and I found some articles about an old house called The Cliff in this country park. There was only ever one person living there, and they were explained as having a split personality, both a woman and a man. They are rumored to have spent their time drawing pictures and hanging them on the gate to their property for passers-by to see. Another house was their property. Another house was also explained, which sounds very much like the remains I described, even the location. An old gate to a huge garden is supposedly hidden in the ivy on that very cliff top. It is said to lead to an old period house, which was once an orphanage. Has anyone ever seen anything like the creature I saw? Is it in fact a ghost? Comments would be appreciated. We all have our share of ghostly experiences. I'm sure none of these experiences are forgettable due to their supernatural nature, but nothing in my opinion would beat the first encounter. Mine happened 20 years ago, when I was just 5 years old, in our old house. It started as an ordinary busy weekday morning for my family. All of my siblings were busy preparing for work and school, while my mom was also preparing me for school. My mom and I are usually the last ones home, as my siblings leave before 7 a.m., while my school service starts around 8 or 9 a.m. After preparing, we were outside the house waiting for my school service to arrive, when my mom asked me to get the powder case from the drawer near our kitchen's entrance. I ran back inside the house to get it, and on my way, I saw a figure move in our kitchen along the entrance, heading towards the back door. The image was very clear, as I was only about 2 meters away, plus the fact that it was bright inside our kitchen. As a clueless kid, I remember prioritizing on getting the powder case, as I was not startled at all upon seeing the figure. I went back to my mom, then casually told her about what I saw. I can still remember the look on her face after hearing my story, and that was when I felt something isn't right. Later that day, my mom and siblings asked me to describe what I saw. The figure looked wooden, like it was almost human in shape, around 5 feet in height, with brown bark-like skin texture all over. It was accompanied by an ordinary single flying bird. We call it pipit here in the Philippines, and the figure was hovering approximately a foot or two above the ground. They were terrified, so they explained to me what I saw, and so, at a very young age, I came to learn about the existence of supernatural beings. Until this day, I still have no idea what kind of being I saw, as it was somewhat elemental in nature. I hope that my story gets published, because I really want to share this experience of mine. A few months back, I had a spooky experience at my hostel in the city of Lucknow, India. I had 2 roommates, one of which was my cousin's sister, and the other was a senior in her 4th year of college. Before I start my story, I would like to tell you that often a house lizard would come into our room because my sister and I were super scared. Ma'am, senior, would have to shoo it away. A few days before my experience, my cousin went home for a few days, so me and Ma'am were the only people in our room. Also, me and my sister had our beds kept close together, whereas Ma'am's bed was on the other end of the room, One night, I had a weird dream that I don't remember, but I was feeling lost and exhausted while sleeping. Suddenly, I woke up to a really loud sound, which is hard to explain, but it was something like a loud shh, followed by a dolphin-like chirpy sound. House lizards also make a similar sound. These two sounds were repeating themselves one after another, and were exceptionally loud. I was confused where was its source, and thinking every person should be awake by now at such a loud sound. Suddenly, my eyes went to the right of the room, and I saw a very thin figure standing by the window facing Ma'am's bed. It was standing sideways and was lean. The figure was really tall, and the little light through the window that hit its chest-abdomen region showed blue-gray scale-like skin. It was unsettling, but my initial instinct was that it must be Ma'am. I called the figure Ma'am a few times and asked it, "Are you shooing the lizard away?" Assuming the shh sound to be the shooing sound and chirpy sound to be that of a lizard. I kept asking it for a few seconds before my eyes looked at Ma'am's bed, and I saw her feet. The realization hit me that she's sound asleep. To confirm, I rose a little higher and saw her asleep. As I realized this was the figure, started disappearing. It got lighter and was gone within seconds. The sound that was continuing had also disappeared along with the disappearance of the figure. The sound disappeared just like a bird's sound is louder when close, and fades away as the bird flies further away. But that sound faded away much quicker than a bird's would. For the next few minutes, I lay frozen like a dead body. I couldn't feel my heartbeat or my breathing at all. I knew I had encountered a being from a realm unknown, but I knew nothing what it was or what it was doing. I was wondering if I was dead because I really felt no heartbeat and no breathing in me. In 5 or 10 minutes, I checked my phone, and the time was around 4 a.m. I had college the next day, so I went back to sleep. But even today, I keep wondering what it was, and I am desperate to find answers to my confusion. This did not happen to me. It happened to a dear friend of mine when we were about middle school age, and to whom I am still very close. I sincerely believe him, and to this day he recounts the story with exactly the same detail. This experience occurred in a trailer park called Wilshire Hills in Norwalk, Iowa. There are several sprawling cornfields that border this mobile home property. My friend Josh lived there at this time, and on this particular occasion, he was hanging out with his friend James, whom I also know. On this night, my dear friend Josh and his friend James were outside of Josh's next-door neighbor's mobile home, trying to get a girl to come out and be mischievous with them. It was summertime, so the evening was warm and balmy. The skies were clear, and the moon, while not necessarily full, provided a lot of moonshine that illuminated the surrounding countryside with dim light. It should be mentioned that Josh's neighbor's place was located on the border of the mobile home property, right next to the sprawling cornfields. Without going into too much detail regarding the physical arrangement of objects within the story, the important facts are that this girl's bedroom was located at one end of the trailer and had 2 windows. Josh and James were each standing at one of the windows, talking to the girl, trying to coax her to sneak out and come hang out with them. Josh was at a window that obstructed his view of the cornfields and open lawn, while James was at the window that looked out onto the cornfields and open lawn. And by open lawn, I mean sort of a public playground area, with a swing set and a slide and whatnot, and enough room to play a game of kickball or baseball. This detail is important to the end of the story. Okay, finally the good stuff. So there they were, talking to this girl. Josh gets tired of trying to get her to sneak out, so he decides to walk around the corner of the house to where his friend James is standing to get him to leave with him. As he comes around the corner, he becomes nearly paralyzed with terror. This is what he saw. It was a humanoid creature, 2 arms, 2 legs, but it was sort of walking on all 4s. It was completely naked, had its legs inverted at the knee joint, like how birds' legs are. It was walking near the border of the cornfields, literally seeming to mind its own business, as though the last thing it would encounter would be humans. Either way, as soon as Josh saw the creature, he said to James, "James, don't turn around." And of course, because of the look on Josh's face, James had to turn around. From having Josh recount this story to me several times, it seems as though James turning around was enough motion to catch this creature's attention, because as soon as he did, the creature shot up so that it was standing upright on its legs, with its arms perched up similar to how squirrels look when they're on their hind legs. Then there was this brief exchange of, "What are you?" looks between Josh, James, and the creature. And during this brief moment, Josh was able to catch a much better glimpse of this thing. Its skin was chalk white. Its body was skinny, sinewy, lean, and defined. On its 2 legs, it was between 4 and 5 feet tall. Its cranium looked slightly larger than humans did. It had large, shiny, pure black opaque eyes, a small, narrow mouth, and not so much a protruding nose, but more like 2 slits in its face for nostrils. Its facial structure was sort of akin to what it would look like if a piece of latex were stretched over a human's face. Once this brief moment of bewilderment ended for both parties, the creature suddenly hunched back down on all 4s and bolted fast. It ran away across the open lawn and into the cornfields. It spanned a distance of probably 40 to 50 yards in 4 or 5 leaps, and that was the last they saw of it. Including this story, I have come across 2 others on the internet that describe this creature exactly. What are these things? A subterranean race of creatures? Extraterrestrials? Extra-dimensional beings? Who knows? But they are at least intelligent enough to be able to avoid humans almost flawlessly. I welcome any comments. Hey everyone, Dismal Hero here, and I'd like to thank you for checking out the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, like and share the video if you enjoyed it. I'm always looking for new and exciting stories, so if you have a scary encounter that has happened to you, please email it to me in the link in my description. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you back here again next time.